I started in the McKeesport office of Neighborhood Legal Services, and I will never forget, I passed the bar, and my first day in the office, I was in the back with some dusty housing files, going through them. And of course, because I was a lawyer now, I had on my lawyer uniform, my navy blue suit, my white blouse, my little tie, and I was all ready to go through these files. And the receptionist came back and she said, Cynthia, you have to come out. We have a client here, and she needs to go to court right away. She's going to be evicted. And I said, oh, I'm sorry, you don't understand. I'm doing these housing files. That's what I'm doing. She said, no, you don't understand. You're the only lawyer left in the office, so you have to go with her. The year that I spent with legal services was very important to me because it did reaffirm what I believe the system to be, and that is that people should have access to the courts and should have access to quality legal services. Unfortunately, many people believe that if you don't pay a lot of money, that you don't get quality legal services. I think that legal services has disproved that over and over and over again. The dedication of legal services attorneys is absolutely unbelievable. And the fact is, we need to make sure that we are supportive of a system where people do have access to quality legal services, even if they don't have the money to pay. Think what happens if people say, I have to stay in this abusive situation. There's nothing I can do about it. My children have to stay in this abusive situation, or an elderly person has to stay in an abusive situation. Think of the cost to society because these people are staying in there. And there are so many costs that are medical and psychological and economic that we don't think about the ramifications of not having access to the courts. I saw what happened when people didn't have access to legal services. I saw people who, of course, came in and attempted to represent themselves. And while they did the best they can, they were held, as I said, to the same standard. I couldn't say, oh, you don't have a legal education, so therefore, just do it the best way you know how and we'll be okay. Because a lot of times on the other side, there were lawyers. There were people who had hired lawyers. So I saw the difference that could make. And while you do everything that you can to make sure that there is a level field that everyone's playing on, that doesn't happen if somebody is legally trained and somebody else is not. Because I do a lot of judicial and legal education outside of the United States, I really know what it means to have access to the courts with quality legal representation. It is so important because in many countries that just does not exist. In most countries, it does not. The more that we in the legal community can do, whether it is support legal services or lawyers themselves help by volunteering their services, the more that we can do, the more that we live up to that constitutional access to the courts.